invite you all back to this room, wherever you went with that beautiful music. Thank you. That was beautiful. You know, so much was going on this weekend. Sorry. Oh, I'll leave it on. So much was going on this weekend, and it started Thursday night over at Unity. We co-sponsored a very famous, very popular country western singer, Mean Mary James. And her name was Mean Mary because she plays one mean banjo. And if you were there, I mean, we were mesmerized. This gal is out of this world. She just happened to be coming from Seattle to San Francisco, and Ken, one of the ministers at Unity, has been following her and said, "Can you just stop by for an evening, do a little singing?" It was fabulous, and everybody I know that was there was just highly entertained. So then Saturday was the Pride Festival, and Saturday night was the International Peace Day, and here we are today, followed by Frankenstein. I mean, we're a wide variety kind of place to come. So I have some questions. I would like to ask the ladies here this morning, based on the results of studies at the Mayo Clinic, if you could be taught a psychological process that would give you a 19% in longer lifespan, would you be interested? Not everyone. Raise your hand if you're interested. 19%. Okay, great. Now, gentlemen, based on studies done at Harvard, if you could be taught a mental defense process that would give you a 42% advantage in healthy aging into your 70s and 80s, would you be interested? Yeah. Okay, most, that's good. Well, the good news is for the last 40 years, there have been study after study after study that have been done that show the power of positive thinking, positive emotions, positive experiences, positive principles that have brought greater physical and mental well-being as we age. Now, for the younger people, that might not feel important, but I'll tell you, to us that are on the going home side, it's very important. But let's go back a bit. Since the beginning of the last century, around 1900, psychologists were focused on what was wrong with people. Why were people depressed? Why did people have mental illness? Why were people extensively sad? These type of things. And over time, the people kept saying, I want to know how to have a better life. I don't want to focus on the negative aspects of life. I want to know the meaning of life. I don't want to, I love this, I don't just want to fidget until I die. Whoever said that was pretty brilliant. So for decades, psychologists felt that we had a range of emotions that were fairly limited, but the Mayo Clinic, Harvard, and the University of Pennsylvania have been showing that every person, including you, has the power to experience a tremendous increase in your level of happiness. Not just 10%, a tremendous increase. And it also increases your mental abilities, and it also increases your physical abilities, leading to a longer lifespan. Now, the primary leader in this research, his name is Martin Seligman, professor of psychology at the University of Pennsylvania, also the leader and director of the Positive Psychology Network. Positive Psychology Network, please check it out on Google. He's the author of 20 books, former president of the American Psychological Association, and we've been focusing on his book this month, Authentic Happiness, and we still have 2 copies in the bookstore. They began a project called Positive Psychology Network, very much like Ernest Holmes started religious science and the science of mind. I found that very interesting because what Ernest Holmes did in the early 1900s, these researchers in the 60s decided to do it again. It was interesting. So the psychologists decided our first task is to read the basic writings of all major religions and all physical traditions, which was over 200 documents that scanned a period of 3,000 years. They read these documents about Aristotle, Plato, Aquinas, Confucius, Buddha, Lao Tzu, Old Testament, the Talmud, the Quran, the Upanishads, and much, much more. Now, their goal in reading this was to find any threads of common virtues or standards of morality. In the early 1900s, when Ernest Holmes was doing the same thing, his goal was to find the threads of truth in all of these documents. And the result was our Science of Mind textbook, originally published in 1926. So he was looking for threads of truth while the psychologists were looking for morality and virtues. In chapter 3, there's a book out called Open at the Top, The Life of Ernest Holmes, and I dearly love that book. It's one of the best about Dr. Holmes. In chapter 3, it was written that Holmes said, I was a synthesizer. That's a good word, synthesized the truths that I found. And I love this. I didn't make it up. The thing that is original about us is that we don't claim any originality. We don't claim to be original. It was all those philosophers and the wisest people in the world over the last 3,000 years, and he synthesized the truths that he found. He called it religious science because it was spiritually based, but also scientifically based as he understood it in the 1920s. He describes it as a correlation of laws of science, opinions of philosophy, the revelations of religions applied to human needs and the aspirations of humanity. That's what this is all about. He said his approach was to make the natural laws of the universe easy to use and down to earth to improve everyday living. He's a very grounded person, very grounded person. So for the later psychologists in the 60s, the Positive Psychology Network, in almost every one of those texts and books and writings that they read, almost every one, they found 6 virtues: wisdom, courage, love, justice, temperance, and spirituality. These are the core characteristics that the wisest people in 3,000 years came up with. They believed that those core virtues are what makes good character. But then the next question they had to answer was, well, how do you measure this? How do you measure how a person learns to embody these virtues? How do they learn to achieve that? How do they learn to exhibit it? How does it build up in someone to such degree that they are love, that they are courageous? How does it do that? So that's what they've been trying to do through all these studies. And I find it really fascinating because they call those our strengths of character. Through developing the strengths of our character, we end up achieving what's called a virtuous life. I was looking through Dr. Holmes' 1926 version of the Science of Mind text because it was rewritten in 1936. And he left a few things out. But one of the things I liked so much is he wrote about personality. And here's a quote. It's a little long, but I think you'll enjoy it. Personality is a unique pattern of being created out of the sum total of all that we have said, done, felt, hoped for, and believed in. It's the result of our reactions to life, to the events in our lives. The factors that contribute to personality are a number of one, like heredity, environment, childhood training, our formal education, everything that makes an impression on our consciousness. That's how our personality develops. That's why we're all so different. He assumed all of us wanted to have a radiant personality. But he said building that is like building a mental garden. The harvest of our garden depends upon the seeds that we plant in it. He identified some major components that support this, such as our emotional control, self-mastery, our enthusiasm, our good manners, of course, love, strength, power, humor, sincerity, spirituality, all of these things, when we realize the importance and value of them in our conscious mind, we adapt them, we bring them into life. But it's quite a lot to learn, don't you think? That's a lot to learn in one lifetime. But the thing is, we are just in this lifetime, and we've had many before and many to come. So we'll continue on this journey as a soul, looking at what we can accept in consciousness to live for a more vibrant, loving, peaceful, joyful life. Holmes believed the quality of love is the most important because it's the universal, that's another word, universal urge to express. The universal urge is what we call God. So why does God have an urge to express through an energy called love? Good question. I don't know if we'll ever know that until we get to sit down and talk to him sometime. I don't know. That's just a joke. But I think I realized the power of love yesterday at the Pride Festival. We had a booth with flags and positive fortune cookies and all kinds of things. And we had wonderful people from our center staff the booth all day long, and they had a great time. About 3 o'clock, I came back with my truck to pick everything up, and they were so organized. They had my truck loaded in 5 minutes. It was really nice. But this reporter came over to me. He said, "Could I interview and tape you on my camera? I have some questions." Sure, no problem. He said, "How long have you been in Redding?" I said, 1987. He said, "Then you might have seen a change in the attitude of the community about the LGBTQ people in our community." And I said, "Oh, definitely." He says, "Why do you say that?" I said, "Well, I'm a minister." And that piqued his interest. He didn't walk away. That was good. But I said, yes, when I came, Redding was a lot more conservative, but over time, they're opening up because these are people in our community everywhere, and they're loving people. And I think they're a greater part of our community now, and I've watched them blossom and us blossom and everyone blossom because our center for spiritual living is built on oneness. Oneness, we're all created by God. He said, "Well, I've been trying for a long time to get this interfaith group in town to talk to me." I said, "Well, I'm on it." He said, "Oh, then I'm going to haunt you because I want every one of them to come in and talk to me at the studio because there's so much people want to know and understand." So I turned him on to Kristen Carr because she and her partner, Christy and Kristen, were there, and he asked her, "Why are so many people here today so happy?" She said, "Well, it's just love." He said, "But even the kids are happy." And she said, "These are families full of love. And when they all get together, it's joyful. It's just joyful. And the booths and the music and the fortune cookies and everything, it just is a happy, happy time for the greater Redding area." I knew he was still pondering this, but she did a really great job. So yesterday we experienced this universal urge for more love because God accepts us as we are, all of us. God's love is unconditional, as our love should be. We're souls on a journey into infinity. It's time to get it. It's time to, wherever we can, improve these values and qualities in our life. Sometimes it's being irritated with the world or confused about why the world is the way it is that robs us of peace and harmony. And we don't need to let it do that. So on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being low, 10 being high, where are you? Where are you in a life of love and harmony? How about courage? Wisdom. That's what we offer here. great wisdom. Not from us. Sue and I are like Holmes. Nah, we didn't create anything new, but we will tell you 3,000 years of history, what people believe that science is now telling us is true. For example, one of the greatest truths by dear Emma Curtis Hopkins, is that it's all good. That everyone is doing the best they can in every moment, no matter how awful it looks or appears. And so when people come to me, I deal a lot with people in crisis. I talk about that. Now, wait a minute. There's a different perspective here, a different perspective. You're on a path of learning and growing. I accept where you are. I help them see a different perspective, that there is love out there, there is hope, that there is optimism that will help them shift their own way of experiencing life. It's not a Pollyanna thing, but we have to keep balance in mind. We have to not just say it's all good, I see only good, but we have to also recognize black, white, up, down, right, left, the balance in life. And we're working to bring more of the good. So I want to share with you some of these double-blind studies and see if you believe them. Here's one a lot of people have studied, and their conclusion is spending money on experiences provides a bigger boost in happiness than spending money on material possessions. Do you agree? Not everyone. Interesting. Okay. And I think the people in the class that I'm doing right now, it's on writing down the soul, would agree spending money on the experience of writing and connecting with your soul has been more valuable and made them greater, increase their happiness than going out and just buying a book. We laugh, we tear up because we share intimate personal experiences in our writing, and we always leave really lifted up. It's a really rich experience. So here's another study that concluded gratitude is a big factor or a big contributor to happiness. Cultivating gratitude generates more happiness. Do you agree? All right, 70%? No, I'm just joking. But if you could see the faces on the people who receive the gifts that you put in the bins in the hallway, oh, the gratitude is so real, it's so rich. And that makes me feel gratitude for you, because that's where all these beautiful items come from. You know, there are smiles, there's been some singing and dancing when people get a pair of shoes that fit. It just opens my heart tremendously. All right, here's another study, or bunch of studies. Giving hugs or other physical affection creates an overall sense of well-being. Now, you may not be a hugger in Sunday services, and that's okay, but I'm sure when you have physical contact with someone you love, a family member, a favorite neighbor, or whatever, I imagine that your feeling of well-being jumps up a notch. Do you agree? Okay. Isn't it great? These things are going through all these studies and they keep coming out with this. Here's another one. Volunteering our time causes an improvement in our well-being and satisfaction and may even reduce symptoms of depression. Do you agree? You know, it's one thing I share with people that come to me for prayer who say, I don't even know if I belong in this life, I don't have any friends, I don't feel like I fit in. That kind of low-level self-esteem. And I say, well, what do you do for volunteering? And there's usually a blank look. You know, it's one of the most beneficial things you can do. And we have 17 different teams that you can volunteer on here at this center. And right now, the sound team could use a couple extra people because they do so well. Got the thumbs up there. Our children's church needs some more assistance to help the teachers. You only see a few children here when they're here. We look at the number that's recorded. Our board member goes out during the 10:30 service and counts how many children are out there. There could easily be 9 to 12 more kids out there. Sometimes we are in awe. So this is not the signal of what we've got. We've got a lot more out there in teachers, but they could really use some help. So if that is an interest of yours, it will increase your happiness. Here's another one. Spending money on other people results in greater happiness for the giver. I love this one because I'm always, no matter where we're going, I'm always looking for things that I can give to someone at some point in the future. And my brother is one of those great receivers, and I already have some. Now he's going to watch this on YouTube. It's Mike, so here we are. You're going to get a new pair of sheets, and you're going to get a new jacket. And I stuff these in my closet all year long for him and other people. And every time I go in my closet, it makes me smile because I know at some point it's going to be a gift appreciated. So all these things can make us happier in the present moment. But it gives our life more meaning when we can see the happiness in the past and how we've generated more or increased it or maintained it, and also what it's going to do for our future life experiences. The big group of psychologists who have started this positive psychology network have a new theory, and I would encourage you to go there to understand it better. It's called PERMA, P-E-R-M-A. This is how we build a solid sense of well-being. P, positive emotions. E, engaging in life, being with other people, volunteering. R, positive relationships. M, having meaning in life, which is why I think a lot of you are here. And A, our accomplishments, that we're doing something for the greater good of the world. So we come up to a definition of positive psychology. It's the scientific study of what makes life more worth living. I mean, who wouldn't want to do research on that? I just think that's a great thing that they're doing. Because it can't be confined to a dogma that we teach or carved in stone somewhere, because it's always subject to influences. Like my experience with the banjo player Thursday night. I've played her CD at least 6 times. Play it in the car, play it at home. And it just lifts me up. So we're subject to new influences. We're subject to creative ideas, those ones that come at you when you're meditating, like, oh, you could be doing this. And sometimes it's like Andrea used to say, when I get too many of those, I sit down and just let them pass. There's only so much we can do. And it depends on our human needs and the human needs of others around us, because our circumstances are always changing, always changing. So when we go back to the question I started with, that in the early 1900s, psychologists were focused on what was wrong with people. The more recent question, thank God, is what's right with people. What makes your life worth living? I urge you to continue to uncover those strengths that you already have that you may not have used for a while. Sparkle up those virtues, peace, power, beauty, joy, and promote positive living, and then enjoy the results. That's the juiciest part of this. So let's do a prayer. Judy, thank you. Oh, what a beautiful day. So I go back to oneness, just like yesterday. The oneness of all the people at the Pride Festival. Love, joy, happiness. And each one of us a part, a creation of the one. So wherever we look around us, if we don't see happiness, we can help create happiness. We can help create joy. We can help create peace. And I believe this today because, doggone it, the scientific community over the last 40 years has done dozens and dozens of double-blind studies, and they've proven Ernest Holmes correct. They've proven the wisest men and women who've lived over the last 3,000 years are correct. Thank God in 2019 we're realizing this. And that we have the capacity, every one of us, to move that forward in a positive way, obviously. Thank you, God, for all these experiences, and now to see psychologists align with Ernest Holmes just makes me smile. And I know I'm on the right path, as you are. And I give great thanks for realizing this, that we're supported by spirit, supported by science, supported by the love that makes humanity what it is. So in great thanksgiving, I let these words just float through the community, just float out to all who want to hear them, whether it's on YouTube or on our website or our podcast. You have happiness in your life, and it's up to you to make it even greater, to know your life is valuable, to know your life is worth living, that your life has meaning. What a joy. And so it is. Thank you.